Hi everyone, Rosie Cassidy here from the Cassidy Group. We're a family-run property development business based in the Midlands. We have successfully built a property development portfolio of over £1 billion with more than 10,000 units within it. We're here today to talk about the secret behind obtaining 100% development finance, be that with a private investor or a bank. Now the key to that is what we would call theoretical equity. Now, not many people talk about this, and what it refers to is the uplift in value in a parcel of land that's achieved during the planning process. Now, this is what we at Cassidy Group specialise in, adding value to a deal mainly within the planning process. So what I mean by this is day one, we will option a parcel of land. For example, let's say it's at £500,000 for a factory unit in a city centre location. We will then obtain planning, let's say for student accommodation or apartments or some sort of a highly dense scheme. Once we've achieved planning, this site could be worth, for example, £3 or £4 million sold on the open market. So for our input, we've increased that value of land by, let's say, £2.5 million if it was now worth £3 million. So when we turn around to a bank and say we want the funding costs for both the purchase of this £500,000 piece of land and the build for the student accommodation, let's say, the 30% capital that they would normally require us to put into the funding is already there in the increase in value of that land. So they know that if they're putting their money into that deal, they've got the security against that increased value. So if something was to go wrong with the deal, they know they could sell that parcel of land, clearing their debt on the open market for more than what it's worth. This is theoretical equity. So we have put equity into the deal, not by the physical input of cash, but the input of knowledge that's created this uplift in value. This is why we call it theoretical rather than a physical equity in the same way as the cash injection. Now, this is the best way to be able to secure 100% finance at reasonable, normal development finance rates. So an example of this is a site we have in Birmingham called Lancaster Street for student accommodation. The site already had planning for 556 student beds. However, this was a really badly designed scheme. The build costs on it were £3 million higher than they needed to be, simply down to a poor decision on the cladding finish of that building. So with this, and working with our architects under a slightly more efficient model, we were able to change this to over 600 student beds on a non-material amendment to planning, as well as altering that fundamentally expensive cladding design. So not only were we able to add value to the land, but we were able to bring down the build costs in this scenario. Both of these added profit to the overall deal, which allowed us to get 100% funding. So here at Cassidy Group, all of our smaller sites are 100% funded by a private investor. And this is on the basis that we add value to a given parcel of land and add that value into the deal, so our funder has extra security against their funds in case something went wrong. An example of this is the Ashleigh. This is a development for 5 luxury homes. We initially got the option on this site, and that means we had the legal opportunity and control over that site for a given period of time, meaning that no other party was able to purchase it for the period in which we had this option agreement. So during the time we had the option, we achieved planning permission, which added value to the parcel of land. So the numbers behind this were that we optioned the piece of land up for £450,000, and once it achieved planning, it was worth £875,000. Now, when our investor came in, he put the funds together in order to purchase that land for £450,000, knowing full well it was actually worth nearly double that on the open market. So as well as funding 100% of the land price. Because of the increase in value of that land and therefore the extra profit in the deal, he was comfortable enough to then go on to fund 100% of the build. So overall, across that whole development, it was 100% funded by our partner rather than ourselves for both the buy and the build. So this is also possible on sites that already have planning permission, providing you see that there's an opportunity to change what would need to be a poorly designed scheme or an underdeveloped scheme, and you can change that to add enough volume or increase in value that the overall site is now worth significantly more than what you pay for it with planning. You could potentially also obtain the site that has planning at an under market value if you negotiate very well. Both of these would give you a theoretical equity. In order to change the planning permission in a cost-effective way without having to spend many thousands of pounds on a completely new application on a site that already does have a planning permission, what you want to be doing is either changing it via a non-material amendment to planning or an NMA, or if it is a material amendment, then that's done under what we call a Section 73 amendment to planning. Both of these are significantly cheaper than a new full and detailed planning application. So that's it for this lesson. It is quite an advanced lesson on quite an intricate detail around development funding. We will do more videos coming up about development finance and funding as a whole for this to slot into, but for now, be sure to comment and subscribe. I want to know more about the content you guys want to see from us so that we can create that for you moving forward. So if any of you are interested in learning how to master property development, learning how to finance the deals, find the deals, everything we talk about in these videos, then be sure to click the link in the bio below to find out more about our educational programs.